Good evening. We're going to get started now, so if you could please turn your phone off, I'd appreciate it. Welcome. My name is René Barilleaux, and I'm the head of Curatorial Affairs here at the McNay. So I'm delighted to welcome you to our presentation of Artists Looking at Art. I'm joined tonight by Allison Gregory. Welcome, Allison.
Thank you, René. It's awesome to be here.
For those of you who are unfamiliar with the program Artists Looking at Art, it's now in its 20th year, and it was started as a way for the McNay to stay connected to the San Antonio arts community and to really keep our fingers on the pulse of what's happening in our own art community here in San Antonio and in the region. So twice a year, we invite an artist from the community to show their work in one of the galleries, and it moves around the museum, so it's not always in the same space. And then also for us to explore the work a little more in a casual conversation. And so that's what we're having tonight, Allison and I. We're going to have a little conversation about her work for us to learn a little more about Allison and also about her work as an artist. So we're going to start. First, I just want to put this picture up. It's the presentation we have up in the Octagon. And you can see the combination of a wall painting and a bench. And we're going to start, Allison, I just want to, for those people in the audience who don't know you, I just want to start by asking you just to tell us about your kind of biography. Tell us about where you're from, what you do, where you went to school, all of those sorts of things.
Well, I actually grew up right here in Alma Heights, and I have been an artist my entire life, completely self-taught. I did go to school in California and major in art.
Which school?
I went to the University of Redlands, and then I went to Platt Design School in San Diego after Redlands. And that was a long time ago, though. But I have been painting since I could walk, all over the carpet in my room as a child, and I mean, I've just always been drawing or painting.
And were your parents encouraging of that?
Very, very encouraging, very supportive.
So do you think that you became, partly the reason you became an artist was you're getting that support from growing up?
Oh, that's very important to have, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this, we're showing, as mentioned, we're showing a painting. Let's talk a little about this painting. It's rather new.
The DNA of Love is what it's the DNA series, because they look like just like molecules and just amoebas and something you see under a microscope almost. There's about 275 bottles of paint that went into that painting. It's a layer of a dot and another dot and another dot, and it's all different colors, and I do 5 colors for each thing, for each little molecule. And they start spreading out when the paint gets really thick, and it just starts moving around the canvas. So you really never know what you're going to get until it's on there. Yes.
And so is this a technique you developed yourself?
Yes.
So this is sort of your kind of signature technique?
One of them, yes. Mm-hmm. I do so many different things, so.
So this painting's on the wall, so it's more like a traditional painting, and then you're also presenting this bench. So I know, and we're going to talk a little more about this later, but I know that you're also interested in kind of design and functional things, right? In kind of applied design.
Well, I am, because my significant other suggested that we have a bench for our hallway in our house, and that's how the bench series began.
So it's very practical.
Yes.
So when did this start? This bench series start?
The Christmas before last. I always take a week off between Christmas and New Year's to do a personal project, and so this was sort of my first. Well, it was my first piece of furniture really that I've ever done, and this is. I think I've done 12 benches now.
And are the techniques used on the benches very similar to what you use on the paintings?
No, this is completely different. This is vinyl. I select all the patterns from Adobe and have them printed onto vinyl, and then I make the shapes and I mix it with different paints, and that's what you get in the bench.
So we're going to come back. I want to talk about your titles, but we'll come back to that a little bit, and also about the kind of imagery you use and where that imagery comes from. But I think we're going to go back a little back in time and take a look at something that's a little earlier. So we're going back, 13 years? Something like that?
A long time ago, yes.
15 years. So when you look at this and you're looking at your work now, kind of talk about like what that moment was about, what you're feeling like then, and then because it's very different from where you are now with the work.
It is, but my signature style is my dots, and I love patterns and I love color, obviously. This was for the University of Texas for their science building, and
was it a commission?
Yes, it was a commission, and they liked the whole molecule look for their biology like wing. And so, I mean, it was a perfect fit.
So you made it for the
Yes.
space. How big is it roughly?
36 by 48, I believe. It's about a couple of thousand paintings ago.
Do you paint every day?
I paint every day.
And do you do work in your studio by yourself, or do you have assistants at all?
Oh, no, it's just me. There's no way I could work with anybody else.
So now we're going to go back to something that's not a wall painting, but an object. So tell us about this
Well,
cow.
this was, I was asked to do Cow Parade, which is the largest public art event in the world. And I was the first artist ever in the world to be asked to do not one cow, but 4 cows. And this was a special cow, Moosey in the Sky with Diamonds is what I named him. And very psychedelic and fun, and it was very tactile. I had a lot of mixed media piece. But what was really exciting about this cow was that it sold for $100,000. Jay Leno auctioned it off, and all the funds went to the Dell Children's Cancer Hospital. And so that night, all of my cows were auctioned off and brought in $275,000. So it was really exciting.
Oh, that's exciting.
I mean,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Where was that?
That was
the
in
cow parade?
Austin for Austin's Cow Parade.
And I think there are cow parades around the country, right?
They're all over the world. They're also, this cow is now a replica that is sold in the Louvre in the gift shop.
Cool. So we're moving a little in time. We're now at 10 years ago or so.
Yes.
Punch Drunk Love. So let's talk about your titles.
Punch Drunk Love. Well, this is from what I call my tile series, where I just do square and square and square and square, and the paint sort of just bleeds together. And it's hard to see from this photo, but all of my tile paintings, I use iridescent, pearlescent, and glitter paint. So literally, it's just blingy and sparkly and fun. And this was a commission for a fashion designer in San Francisco. And she was needing motivation to do a new line of dresses, and she said that my work inspired her to start designing again. And so she made this into a dress, actually, after I finished it. So
Wow. So when you start a painting like this, do you sketch it out on the canvas or the board? Do you
it
just
is
start?
no preconceived anything with my work. I just go for it, and
So
hope for the best.
it finds its own way as you go.
Right.
And I'm always curious, like when I go to an artist studio and there's like 6 canvases across the space and they're working on all at the same time, or some artist is only working on one canvas at one time?
I do one at a time.
One time, so you're just focused. And
I completely have a relationship with that piece, and I get obsessed with the piece, and I almost grieve when I finish a piece, because then I'm like, oh, how can I outdo myself?
Is it hard for you to let them go, like into the world?
Not anymore. It was at the beginning of my career, I think, but it's it is what it is. I'm an artist for a living, so.
Here we have more animals, or another animal.
Yes.
So now we're Disco Doggy.
Disco Doggy I actually founded my own public art event, and it was called Pause for a Purpose, and it was to benefit the Texas Humane Legislation Network, and they're actually a nonprofit that is in court fighting against animal abuse. And so this was to raise money for them, and I invited 30 artists in Texas to be a part of this project, and we painted cats and dogs, and then they were auctioned off in Houston, and it all went to the THLN.
So if I'm not mistaken, with the cows, those are like pre-cast forms or something?
Fiberglass,
Fiberglass
yes.
forms. Is it the same with
This is also fiberglass.
So
I love working in fiberglass. It's very easy because it's very smooth, and you don't have to sand or do anything like that. It's just pretty much like a clean slate, no pun intended.
We can look, okay, and then another example of sort of a functional piece, these cell phone cases, iPhone cases.
Yes, I still do these. I still work with this company. They're out of Delaware, and every year they pick new designs, and so you can get my artwork on your iPhone, on your iPad, on your computer, on your Kindle. I mean, they do every device now known to mankind.
And are these adaptations of existing
These are
works?
actually existing pieces.
Works that
yes.
then they kind of use as a...
Right.
Those are great.
Thank you.
The next image is something a little different, right?
This is different for me. This is actually came about, I had a life-changing injury a few years back, and I crushed my ankle, and I couldn't walk or drive for over a year. So I had to get creative about being creative, and I couldn't really like paint and use resin and chemicals because my leg was like this all day. And so I started doing these shadow box sort of pieces, and it was a series I did, and they're all assorted with vintage toys and collectibles from the 50s, 60s, and 70s and 80s.
Where do you get them?
Vintage markets, antique marks. I for years I collected all of these pieces, never knowing really what I was going to do with them. And then I happened to have this horrible accident, and I thought, this is a good time to figure out what I'm going to do with all these pieces that I have, these collectibles. So this was one of them.
So this became a series?
This was a series. It was called Pets with Passports, and it was all like animal collectibles, like assembled and traveling all over Europe, and it just shows scenes from different parts of the country.
So if you had to, if somebody didn't know your work and they asked you about your work, what are some of the adjectives that you would use to characterize your work? Because you've already used some great ones tonight.
Whimsical, playful, colorful, bright, psychedelic.
And what kind of reaction do you want to get from your audience?
I want it to make people happy, energetic, just really fun. I want you to walk away feeling like you just saw something that's just so cool, you have to tell somebody.
That's great. Do you think there's not much fun in contemporary art?
I think sometimes, I have to be careful what I say, I guess, but I think some artists get a little serious sometimes, and I like to keep things light.
So here we're kind of moving back to kind of what your kind of more your signature work, right, with the dots.
With the dots. But this one is a little bit different because you've got the juxtaposition of the background. And this was a diptych that was meant to be together, and they are together in a house. But I usually cover the canvas with dots. I don't usually leave so much negative space. So, but I did a few of these, and they were very popular, like keeping it like that.
Yeah, what I found interesting about these is that in most of the other dot paintings, it's kind of there's everything is sort of functioning on one plane, right? They're on one surface, and here you have a sense of depth, right?
Right,
You have a sense of
you do.
atmosphere. What inspires you? Like what kind of things? Do things in nature? Do things in the real world? What inspires you to make these kind of images?
That's a good question. I just know that I have to make them. I'm obsessed with patterns and details, and so the more detailed that I can get, it just makes me feel good to just be so detailed. It's hard to explain. It's sort of like a mechanical process when I do it, and I'm just in my zone, and nothing, anything can go on around me, and I'm just in my world, so.
Here's another amazing.
Now, yeah, so this is all the dots, no negative space. This is a really special piece because this was the runner-up for the Scope Art Fair. And I don't have a lot of my own work, but this piece is in our house. It is called 24,000 something dots of mania because literally it was 24,000, and that's when I stopped counting dots. Well, because I knew how many bottles of paint I went through, and I knew how many drops of paint came from each bottle.
So talk about that a little, because how big are these bottles? Okay, and you're like applying the paint with the bottle?
Just dropping with a dot, and then I would put a layer of resin, and then I would do a dot on top of another dot, and then have to let that dry, and then another layer of resin. And this is a process that I would do every day. This piece took like 5 weeks to do. And it was the runner-up, so that was really exciting.
But what's the size of the circus?
It was actually on metal, It's a metal frame. I actually found it, I repurposed it from a piece that I saw at Hobby Lobby, one of those generic pieces of art that they sell, and so I just used it for the metal. So. It was 36 by 36 inches around there in diameter.
What does it weigh?
Nothing. It's very thin, actually. You'd be very surprised. So much paint ran off the sides that there's drips. Like the whole back of the piece is just dried drippings all over it. And so I wanted to keep that look, so I had it hung specially so you could see the drips on the sides of all the paint.
So it's suspended off the wall? So?
Yes.
Nice.
This was a fun piece. Some people go both ways. It's a quote from The Wizard of Oz, and this was a fun piece. It's completely all mixed media. It's got specialty jewels and rhinestones in it. It's got lace in it. And this is when I started experimenting with holographic tapes and paper. And you'll see another piece in this collection like this.
You mentioned you did a commission for a fashion designer, I believe. When I look at this, I think of textiles and patterning and textiles. And is
Quilts, yeah.
I mean, is that something that's also inspiring you think, maybe subconsciously?
Maybe subconsciously. I love I love pattern. You know, and this one's fun. It's almost like Chutes and Ladders, like the game that I grew up in, because there's all these little, you know, you think you're going to see just these straight lines, and then there's these little curves and little bridges that go up and up and up, and it's just little strips of rhinestones and crystals. So it's hard to tell in the picture, but.
And I know you probably think I'm obsessed with asking about titles, but so with the titles, like, do you have the titles before you make the work, or do
They usually happen while I'm in the middle of
Something-
my relationship with that piece.
Okay.
Like, it just sort of just comes to me. This is a fun piece. This was the lottery series that I did years ago, and they are all winning scratch-off tickets. And so,
Are they your winning scratch-off tickets?
no, not mine. I think I got the idea to do these because scratch-offs are just so fun and exciting, and not because, hey, you might win money, but they're just the graphics are so colorful and vibrant and metallic-y and glittery, and it just catches your eye. So that's why so many people buy scratch-offs. I'm convinced it's the graphics. So I decided to do a series of collages with just winning scratch-off tickets. And this is the biggest one that I did.
And this has a little bit more structure than some of the other.
For sure.
And do you think that is because of the materials you use? They were all kind of these rectilinear shapes and.
Well, everything is hand cut. I mean, these are probably like 60 or 70 different scratch-off games. And they're just all cut up to make the pattern that I made in this piece.
And so you've mentioned like this series and that series. Do you usually work in a series? Is that how you sort of?
I get experimental, and I'll do a piece, and if I'm happy with it, usually it becomes a series, because then I think, well, I want to do another one. I can do it better. And then I'll say, oh, well, this one's great, but I can do one even better than that. And then all of a sudden I have 10 pieces. So.
Yes.
This reminds me of those Tibetan sand paintings that those Tibetan monks made.
Right, or mandalas. Those kind of. Yes.
That's it, right?
And I'm actually working on a mandala right now at home. So, interesting.
Right. And here we have something more that's kind of mandala-like, a circle
Well,
within a
these are my
rectangle.
bullseyes. These are special to me, actually. I've done about 300 bullseyes at this stage of my career, and people buy them in sets because they're all 12 by 12. The size never changes. Each ring is made from resin and eyeshadow. And so I make the molds, and I make them from old, like, Frisbees, hummus containers, anything that is plastic and circular. I have a whole bin of circular objects, and I make the molds from the eyeshadow and the resin.
Okay, so these are little dimensional
Oh, but they all come out at
Okay.
you, yes.
Like how far off?
I'd say the biggest one probably 4.5 inches maybe.
Oh, well, off the surface.
There's about like 13, 14 rings, and I build them up, so they just sort of come out at you. The San Antonio Express News wrote an article about this series when I first did it, and they called them the nipple series. So, to each his own.
When you visit museums and look at art in the world, what artists inspire you?
Which artist? My favorite artist is a German mixed media artist, Marcus Lindenbrink, and I really love his work. I also like Robert Combus, the French artist, he's completely different than Marcus. There's so many great artists, but usually it's people who do a lot of color and a lot of detail. I'm attracted to my own work, apparently.
So we're going to look at something that's a little different here in the next one.
This was one of my first metal wall reliefs that I ever did, and I called it Living in the Bubble because I did it right when I moved back to San Antonio from Austin, and I was living in Alamo Heights, and so everybody says it's the bubble. So it just came to me one day, and it is almost like a bunch of bubbles at you because I think it was like 9 different dimensions of circles in that piece. It was very far off the wall.
They're little paintings?
It's like little paintings in one, as my wife says. Yes.
And they're kind of fastened together? Or?
No, they're all metal, and the rods are behind the circles, and so they sort of come out at you when you're staring at it.
Nice. And this is part of a series as well?
No, this is not part of a series. I've just done many different metal wall reliefs. These are what I call the reverse glass pieces because it's not just a poured painting. This is actually glass, and you do an acrylic pour, but then you hold the glass when you pour the paint onto it and you turn it and whatnot, and then you flip it to the other side and you can see the original mixings of the paint. So it's a completely different painting than what you started with. It's really a really interesting effect.
You talk a lot about process, right? Because process is very important to you in a lot of ways, right? Can you talk a little more about that?
Well, I mean, I have so many different processes for different looks, but I mean, you're building a relationship with each piece that you make, and it's all about the time you're spending doing it. I mean, everything that goes into mixing things, and it's just a whole process to do each piece. It's all these different steps you have to take, and so I think it's important for people to know that it's different for every piece that you do.
And what I'm sensing is that part of the joy for you in making these works is going through that process.
Yes.
Because it's really like some artists, hate the making and love the final product, right?
Right.
Because they just want to get there. They don't want to have to go the whole way to get. But it's clear that you love getting there, right?
I do. I don't like resining and doing all that at the end. I dread that at the end. It's a messy, toxic situation, but it has to be done to make them look beautiful. So.
Where's your studio?
Our 2-car garage has a skylight, an air conditioner, and it is perfect. The whole entire floor has got paint all over it and resin all over it. So
you can just roll out of bed and get into your studio.
That's exactly what happens.
This is a little different from what we've been seeing.
Very much so. Well, obviously, I don't even need to discuss the significance of Picasso's Guernica. But I had always wanted to take a stab at reproducing it. I'd seen many artists try to recreate it, and it was a challenge for me. This was one of those pieces that I did between the Christmas and the New Year week that I do a personal project. And I wanted to see if I was able to add whimsy to such a serious painting. And see if I would even be able to put my own flair and style in it. And I think I did. I mean, I used patterns and neon colors in it. So I think it came out pretty
How big
neat.
is this?
24 by 48.
You still have this?
Oh, no, it's sold.
Was it kind of, did you do others in this kind of series of looking at art history, or was that just
No, this
one
is-
personal project you mentioned?
Yes, that was just
Tell us about those personal projects you do between Christmas and New Year's. What is,
Well, because I always think of things throughout the year that I'd like to try to do, but I never have time because I'm always working on a commission or preparing for a show or something like that. I don't have time to just sit around and do something for myself, I guess. So there's that week between Christmas and the New Year that nothing happens in the art world. And people are out Christmas shopping and whatnot. So it's a perfect time to experiment and do the things that I always want to try. And so I took a stab at Guernica, and that's how that happened.
How big was Guernica?
It was 2 by 4 feet, 24 by 48 inches.
How long did it take you to paint it?
2 weeks.
Wow, that's quick.
I work a lot. This is what I call my pop abstract style, which is pop and abstract mixed together. It's a combination of patterns from books and mixed with paint, and then I draw on top of it to get even further detail
you draw with?
with acrylic pens.
And so there's a little bit of dimension to the surface?
Yes.
And I think looking back, you've always been attracted to these very kind of shiny, sparkly, very seductive surfaces in your work.
I love texture and patterns, and I'm just
Have you ever, do you design textiles?
never.
Well, it's very adaptable to textiles.
I know, I've heard.
The question about that piece there, there's a lot of abstract, there's some geometric, and it looks to me like just about 2/3 of the way up, 1/3 of the way over, there's the back of a woman wearing this gorgeous thing, and she's got something on her head.
Guess I should have my glasses on. Well, that wasn't intentional, but that's interesting. That was not intentional, no.
Do you find that happens a lot? People see these
People see
things?
things in my work, yes, that was not the case. I did not put a woman in there, but
How do you feel about that? People
I think
seeing
it's
these things?
fun. I love that it challenges the viewer, and it's like a game, you know? It's just really fun. It's an interactive experience. This is from the Rainbow Bright series that the really interesting thing about these pieces is this is when I started working strictly with holographic paper and tapes. And so you walk across this, when you're walking in front of this piece, from the left to the right, it starts to change colors on you, and it changes dimension. So it's like a movement going on, and you think it's a yellow stripe, but then all of a sudden it's gold, and then it's like a chartreuse. It's the craziest thing. There's just the coolest paper, and I've done several of these panels, and
So what's the stripe made from? Is it paper?
the paper
So it's
and
like a
tape
like
and
a
iridescent
collage, sort of?
iridescent paint, and I make strips. And I lay them and go over them and over them until they get thinner and thinner. So, and then you walk from one side to the other, and it completely starts like moving. It's a crazy effect.
You cover them with resin?
Oh, for sure.
All of these
All
paintings?
of my work is covered in resin.
So talk a little more about that. What do you do?
Well, for one, it preserves the work, and you'll keep it forever. I always tell people you can stick my art out in the rain, and it will be just fine. So not only does it look good, and it makes your pieces look shiny and glossy, but it's really great to protect the art for
So
years
it's
to come.
a clear coating.
Clear coating.
Yeah.
Sometimes I use glitter to mix in with the resin to give it a sparkle. These are my 3D dot pieces. I love optical art, and a lot of people, when they see these up close, think that they're marbles, and they're not, but I give the illusion that they are marbles. They're actually buttons that I stack and then paint the insides so that I marbleize the paint. So I'll take the back of a nail, because I need something small, and I'll put a couple of drops of paint into the button, and then take the nail and swirl it around, so then it really does look like a marble. But really, I've done it myself, so.
And these are kind of protruding off the canvas.
These are all popping out, yes. They're all stacked. I build them up. They're like little towers.
And this is a series.
Yes.
More animals.
More animals, yes, these are fun.
Do you have animals?
Yes. 5 cats. But yeah, these are just more cats and dogs. I did these for the gallery, for An Arte Gallery. They represent me in San Antonio. And these make great pieces for your house, because they're not big like the cows. You can actually put one in your living room or your hallway, and it's not going to take up too much space. So if you're an animal lover, I suggest you get a dog or a cat.
One of yours.
One of mine specifically.
Are these precast for?
These are all fiberglass, yes.
And do you name them?
I do.
Do you remember the names of these?
I remember the dog's name is Moondoggy. Or, no, not Moondoggy. That was your dog. Chris did a dog too. This is a really important piece to me, because I know how much work went into it. This is sort of a series I did that was off of the Memphis design movement, and it really revolves around maximalism and more is more, and intricate patterns, details, layer over layer. So this is like all of the lines in this work it's a bold line, and then a medium line, and then a line over that line, and a dot over a dot over a dot, and it's just the whole entire piece, the whole entire series, they're all like that, is just layering and repetition.
About how big is this?
That is 3 by 4 feet, and that is available.
Do you have certain kind of sizes you work in that are like?
I like
it
to
seems
work
like a lot of
large.
3 by 4, 2 by 3.
Yes, that's my favorite sizes, are everything 3 by 3 and up, preferably.
This is a little bit of a departure, right? This was in fact,
Yeah, well, it is.
showed this about a year ago, I guess.
Yeah, it was for my show. That's right. These are my wooden wall reliefs. I only do like 1 or 2 a year, because they are so labor intensive. This is 135 pieces of wood assembled and painted.
What kind of wood?
I just outsource the wood from, like, I go to different stores that have, like, say a bird house, and I basically just buy these things for the wood, and I disassemble it, and then I reassemble it like a puzzle.
And you cut them out.
Right. And then I paint them, and then I do the patterns on top, and I never know what I'm gonna get. It literally is like a puzzle. Like, I will just have wood pieces all over the floor of the garage, and then slowly I just start sort of like matching things together, and that's what you get. And that piece was really big. This is the biggest wall relief I've done. It was like 90 inches long. So.
And I sense for every work we look at in each of these series, there are probably 10 or 15 others in that series, right?
Yes.
So you are very prolific.
There's a couple of wall reliefs.
So we're going again, now we're look the next thing, we're looking at again a little different.
My cityscapes. These are very popular in San Antonio for obvious reasons. This is like the one that I have one downtown right now. My mural is on the side of the Hyatt on the river, and it's 5 stories tall, and it looks very similar to this painting. My cityscapes are popular because we all love the city we live in. We all love San Antonio, and they embody the color and the spirit and just the festiveness of our town.
So are you doing these city scenes sort of ongoing?
The cityscapes are always ongoing. I'm constantly getting commissions for cityscapes.
Do you get a
and
lot of commissions?
rotating, always.
So when you say it's a mural on the Hyatt, is that what you said?
It is. It is 5 stories tall on the entire side of the Hyatt Regency. And so.
And the subject is?
And the subject is, it's a San Antonio scene. It's a cityscape, one of my cityscapes. So. These are like my pinwheel collages. And this one is all playing cards and comic books that I cut up, and they look like kaleidoscopes and pinwheels, I think. So this was for my show that I just had, my solo show last month, and that was one of the featured pieces.
And is it dimensional or is it pretty flat?
No, it's pretty flat.
Because
I
it
mean,
reads,
it's just
it reads
cards.
very dimensional in this image.
Yeah, but it's very labor intensive doing all that cutting.
And you're back to this kind of positive negative space here.
Yes,
So you have
this one is, yeah. Because there's so much detail going on in each kaleidoscope that you have to have, a neutral palette, pretty much.
a place you can rest your eye, right?
Yes, that's exactly right.
As you're moving around.
Yes.
So that kind of brings us full circle back to where we started here with the painting and the bench that are upstairs.
Yes.
This painting was made for this program?
It was. Well, you picked it out.
I think we have some time to hear some questions from the audience. Or I know that I already sense a lot of questions from the audience. So I think we're going to start, and I'll start with Susan there.
You work every day. Do you have a set time?
Usually I start at about, I get up at 5, so I'm a very early riser, but I have to have my coffee and exercise and then shower and then begin. So usually I'll start at like 9 and then go till however long. It depends on what I'm working on and how many projects I have going.
Yes, here.
Ms. Gregory, your bio says that you were the first American and the first woman to be part of this
Toyism art movement, yes.
movement. Could you say a little bit about that, please?
Years ago, I was part of an art movement that was out of the Netherlands, and they were called the Toyists, and we would come together and create paintings together. And that was where I was part of that movement.
What
And
were the paintings? What kind of paintings would you?
very pointillistic.
Uh-huh.
So I was a really good fit for that, for being a part of their art movement, because I was so detailed already.
And
with
were
my
you all
work.
working on the same work
We would
together?
all work on the same work and then pass it to the next artist, and so it was really interesting.
How long were
And
you
we were all
involved-
from different parts of the world, so
And how long were you involved with that?
a couple of years. Yeah.
So we had a question up there. Mhm.
Yeah, for somebody's like, what is your greatest challenge when you come up with all these designs?
My greatest challenge:
Yeah, the greatest challenge of all.
learning to stop. I do so, but there's so much going on all the time. Sometimes I have to say enough is enough.
Is that hard? Is it hard to know when you're done?
It is hard to stop, yes.
How do you know when you're done?
I really, I don't know. Sometimes I just keep going, and then I say I'm about to ruin it if I do anything more to this piece,
What's the better addiction than playing video games all the time?
Very true.
Do we have a question way in the back up there?
Yeah, thank you. Love your work.
Thank you.
Curious about the 5-story Hyatt mural. Is it directly on the building?
Yes, it is actually on the building. It is, you can't miss it
Is it
from the
painted
street.
on the building?
No, it is
poly-
vinyl. Vinyl?
Vinyl. Okay.
And it's in squares. They had to get a crane to put it together. It's the biggest mural downtown now. And
Actually paint the,
I did the original painting, which hangs in Sol Luna restaurant, which was only 3 by 4 feet. And then it was photographed, reproduced onto vinyl, so because of the large scale. And now that's why it's 5 stories tall. Don't have the space in my garage for that one.
final wrap almost.
Right, that's correct. And it's weatherproof, so weather friendly.
Yeah, and a lot of the murals you see downtown in San Antonio are actually not painted on the buildings they're on. They're
Right.
painted on a material that's then applied to the building, so that it's
It's like the new thing. Vinyl is the new thing for murals.
yeah, yes. So it's not, a lot of them are not done in the tradition of painting on the
Right.
on the surface itself. There's a question here in the middle.
I'm in An Arte Gallery, which is on Broadway and Sunset, and they represent me in San Antonio. And my website is AllisonGregoryFineArt.com.
Yes.
You have a lot of music titles in your.
I do.
Do you listen to music?
I do. Yes, because I'm always singing while I'm painting.
So when we see "Wake Me Up Before You Go," you're probably
I was listening to
playing-
Wham.
Okay, just clarifying it, right?
Yes, George Michael was with me that day.
I got a question here. Yes, you.
I'm going to follow along on the music because I too work with music. Do you find that you get stuck like in one genre of music and that dictates your series?
No,
Do you just kind of
I just play whatever mood I'm in, really. But sometimes I need like a really good jam to get going, you know. 80s, always 80s with me.
Are you tuned into ambient at all?
A little bit.
It's a huge genre.
Yeah. No. Oh, I'm aware. Yes.
Yes.
Do you have a series of benches?
I do now. I started with one, and now I have 10.
So where, are they all sold, or where are they?
There's 2 at the gallery, at An Arte Gallery, and those are my newer benches that have hearts on them. That are like hundreds of hearts and patterns and whatnot.
Are they all the same shape?
They're all different size hearts.
No, the shape of
But
the
for
bench.
this one, but they're all the same dimension, yes, the benches. They are all the same.
And there's the one upstairs here.
And there's one upstairs, yes, and that is for sale upstairs. FYI.
Allison, do you ever do workshops?
I do not. I don't have time, and I lose patience easily with myself, so I'm not sure I'd be a great teacher.
Any other questions? Here, yes.
What's in a typical
Allison
Erasure, OMD, old school stuff, Pet Shop Boys, just old 80s dance music, you know, electric, very, very beady.
Talking Heads?
Sure, every once in a while. Yeah.
All right.
What cities or countries did you work in prior to returning to Alamo Heights? You mentioned the Netherlands and California.
Oh, I lived in California, and then I lived in Austin, and now I'm back here. So I was in California for school, and then I moved to Austin after I got my degrees, and then I moved to San Antonio a couple of years ago.
Yes.
If you find yourself in a period of stagnancy,
Yes.
what are some of the ways that you look for inspiration?
Books. Books and going to the art store and just walking around sometimes helps me. I just got out of a really big block a couple of weeks ago, and I just started, I ordered a bunch of coloring books online, and that got me into what I'm now doing, which I think is going to be a new series, my new mandala pieces that I'm working on right now. So, but I was in a really funky block, and I just, and Pinterest. I have to credit Pinterest. That is just the best. It's just eye stimulation, so.
It strikes me that if you had to sum up one word with this, you would say that you're fundamentally a colorist. And I'm wondering your association with music and with visual color. Do you ever ascribe meaning to color?
Happy.
Are you asking if she associates like a certain color with a certain mood?
Yes, that is.
Like is red?
Oh,
kind of-
well, I think all of us do in a way. I mean, blue is sort of, calming, or some people may say it's depressing. It's my favorite color, personally. So pink, I always find to be energetic and happy, and yellow is like my new obsession lately. Like, I love yellow. I didn't like it before, but now I'm really into yellow. So, I mean, it's just, to each his own.
We get a piece of Sonia Delahaye's work in exhibition here. I wonder if anyone who influenced you, she was very interested in colored shapes and how those were non-traditionally used.
No, I have not met her, but I'll have to check it out.
Yes.
How would you advise a young, promising artist to get in a position to begin getting commissioned?
I would say the most important thing to do, what they don't teach you in school, is you have to learn how to market yourself. Marketing is the key if you want to do it for a living. You have to learn how to market your work. And the commissions will come once you're in galleries, once you start doing shows and you get yourself out there. I mean, assuming you have talent, of course.
So then the internet is not enough? You're suggesting actual real places? It has to be in real places, galleries, and exhibitions?
Well, you don't have to be in galleries. The internet, it's never enough if you're doing it for a living. You should constantly have your art in as many places as you possibly can. The more people that see your work, the better off you're going to be.
So the internet is fast.
But the internet is great. I mean, social media is a game changer now with art.
And do you find that it's very useful for you, social media, for your marketing your work?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I do when I finish a piece is I'm like, okay, I'm going to wait till Thursday, because I always think Thursday is the best day to post. So I say, okay, I got to wait till Thursday, but I get to post my new piece, and then, you just wait. But it's also, it's kind of scary, because you're putting yourself out there for anybody to comment. All of my social media profiles are public, so because I use them literally just for art. So you're letting people come into your world and critique you every time you make a post. But it's a good thing. It's a good thing. A lot of people aren't going to get on your website anymore. They're not going to go to galleries. So, yeah.
Then we have time for maybe one more question if there's any other questions. Yes.
That color, the castle thing shocked me when I saw it. So on and so forth. Was there an attempt there to say, yes, this is horrifying, but on the other hand, what can color do?
Yes, that was my challenge. How do you make a painting that was so disturbing and serious and sad? Is there a way that I could add my spin of whimsy and my love of maximalism into it? And I did, I think, by adding pattern into it and making the characters seem more comic-like. Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Well, it's a horrifying subject.
Yes.
And so I said, what would Picasso say if he saw that? And I said, you're so anti-color in many respects in the way you did his work.
Picasso probably wouldn't like it.
But I was left with a big question after that. Like, how did you judge that as a success?
I did.
That to elevate.
I was very challenged doing this piece, and you're taking somebody who is a master of art, and you're taking one of their pieces and trying to make it your own style, and it's a really difficult thing to do. But that's why it was my project over December, my Christmas project, because I thought, well, if this isn't going anywhere, nobody's ever going to see it, and turned out that a lot of people liked it, so it ended up going into a show.
Well, Allison, I want to thank you for
Thank
sharing
you so
so
much for
much about
having
your
me.
work.
Thank you all for coming.
And yes, thank you all for coming.